Most photographers think if they just sell digital files or run mini sessions for a little cheaper than the photographer down the street, they can figure out pricing of products later. But here's the problem when you do that. You're not serving your clients and you're definitely not serving yourself. And when it comes to starting to offer printed products like wall art and albums, you probably have no idea what to charge. Here's the thing. I'm not handing you another pricing calculator because that's not what you need. What you really need is to get this. If you want to run a business for profit, you have to charge profitable prices. And I'm challenging you to stop giving away a ton of cheap high-res digital files to your clients to figure out how to print. Because as you know, they usually don't even print them. Your clients don't need more digital files. So today I'm walking you through 5 simple steps to price your printed portraits profitably without scaring away your clients. If you follow this system, you'll stop trading endless nights of editing and retouching for pennies, and you'll start building a business that actually pays you what you deserve. I know this works because I too went from giving it all away for no profit to selling over $3 million in portraits using these 5 steps. By the way, if we haven't met before, I'm Sarah Petty, and I've helped more than 33,000 photographers build profitable businesses through my Photography Business Institute. And we always start with pricing. Step 1, the foundation. This is your cost structure. Here's the biggest mistake photographers make when they're pricing their work. I hear it all the time. Sarah, my business is fine. I just need more clients. When really, my friend, if you aren't priced profitably, coupled with you likely don't have a great sales plan to increase your average order, simply getting more clients is sending you down the wrong road faster. Listen, making more money is absolutely a function of your prices and the products you offer. Here's what you need to understand to be able to not just survive, but thrive. Listen, to be profitable, you have to use at least a minimum of a cost-based pricing formula, which means understanding your costs. So let me break it down for you. The most important cost to pay attention to is what we call cost of sales. Some people call it cost of goods sold, or COGS as an abbreviation. I might refer to that. So it's cost of sales, or COGS. These are the materials that go into creating your client orders, like lab fees, framing, credit card fees, and your time. Think of it this way. If you don't have a client, you won't have any COGS. Now, COGS don't include any other things in your business like overhead, insurance, office supplies, studio rent, which would be overhead, because you'll be paying those costs whether or not you have a client. We like our students' COGS to be below 20% so that there's money there to pay other expenses and pay yourself. So how do you calculate this? The math is simple. Add up your costs, which most people don't include their time. You've got to include your time. But let's say for easy math, something costs you $20. Just charging $30 or $40 or $50 isn't going to leave any profit left for you. On a $20 product, so that your cost of sales is 20%, you have to charge $100. Do you see that? So this is for sale for $100. And your COGS are $20, which is 20%. Then you want to keep your other expenses to 30 to 40%, leaving you with, get this, 35 to 50% net profit. Think about that. You keep half of what you bring in. Some businesses are beyond giddy to keep 3 to 5%, and then they have overhead and staff and to manage all of that. You get to do this without a studio. You can outsource retouching so you don't even need employees, and that money goes into your pocket. I have students who keep their full-time job or their part-time job, and they make great money on the side using the system we teach because it's highly profitable. And listen, if you only have part-time to dedicate to your business, either because of a job or you're a parent, that's all the more reason to make more money in the limited time you have. Now, here's a statistic that blows people's minds. If you move away from just handing over all the digital files and you switch to this print-based boutique model that is so much more profitable, where you're helping clients order wall portraits and albums, you can actually lose more than half of your clients and still make the same money, sometimes even more. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you have 10 client sessions where you give all the digital files for $200. That's $2,000 total. That's all you're going to make with that client because they have all the high-res digital files and they're not going to order more from you. Even if you put up online galleries, they're going to get paralysis by analysis and keep putting off the decision. With this digital file, let's say you spend 15 hours per client, which is a pretty conservative estimate because likely you're overshooting, which means you're over editing and over retouching. So that works out to be about $13.33 per hour, less than minimum wage. Now, compare that with the boutique model. We teach our students to charge a session fee, and then you create the images, you sit with your clients 2 weeks later and help them narrow down to select the ones they want and place their order. Let's say you convert to a print-based boutique model where you have half as many clients, okay? Let's say you lose half and you get 5 clients instead of 10. Because you're serving them better and you give them an easy purchase path, each one invests an average of $2,000 on beautiful artwork for their home. That's $10,000 total. And because you're shooting less because you have a plan, and you're only editing and retouching what they actually purchase, you're only spending 10 hours per client. And I think that's pretty aggressive. It should be more like 6 to 8. But at 10 hours, that comes to about $200 per hour. I really want you to think about it this way. One boutique client at $2,000 replaces 10 digital file clients at $200. And believe it or not, the boutique client is way easier to serve in way less time. So if you don't think you're worth these prices, let me say this. If you want to make a profit and have a life, these are the prices you need to charge. So what I would encourage you to do, instead of taking on all these cheap clients and making no money and using up all your time, I would encourage you to spend your time and money learning how to become worth this, right? The words to say, how to run all the steps that need to happen versus spending your time making minimum wage and feeling bad about yourself. What I know after coaching photographers for so many years, you are probably so much closer than you think. Here's how I learned this for myself, because I had an MBA and I was a marketing director at an ad agency, had newborn twins. In fact, here they are right here. And I just thought I can figure this out. I'm smart. And yet business school doesn't teach you how to price your work in a super competitive marketplace. So I was super underpriced. Get this, because it was film days. I was giving away all the prints for $75. And between film processing and hand printing 36 images, it was costing me $65. That was $10 I was making. And so there's barely anything left after expenses. Clients were telling me, Sarah, I love it, and I'm going to order some bigger prints, but they never did. And even though I wasn't a great photographer yet, I realized quickly that I can't spend years figuring this out. So I dug in and I created a totally new system. And it wasn't about my photography. I had newborn twins and I wanted so badly to succeed, so I didn't have to go back to a 9-to-5 job. So I had to make some hard decisions. I dramatically increased my prices and I made the decision that my clients were no longer going to get prints unless they ordered them. I used my ad agency marketing skills to attract right fit clients, and I had to be okay knowing that I might lose some of my past clients. So I was working on this new system. I started marketing the way I knew how. And one of my very first clients came in with this new system, and her name was Julie. She was a young stay-at-home mom with her very first baby. And I remember her coming in and I'm talking her out of things. And when all the dust settled, she had placed an $1,800 order for printed artwork. That one order replaced 24 of my $75 sessions. That's worth learning, right? So when you learn to serve clients with the print-based boutique model, it gives you 10 times greater revenue with 75% less work. That's how you serve clients better and get your life back. That math alone could transform your business overnight. And you might be thinking, okay, Sarah, but what about when people say, oh gosh, that's really expensive? Let's talk about that because price objections aren't really about money. Step 2, the value creation secret. Here's the truth about price objections. They're actually value objections in disguise. When someone says, oh gosh, that's too expensive, what they're really saying is, I don't see enough value to justify that price. Why the $200-$300 digital photographers can't compete with our boutique model comes down to one key insight. In the absence of value, price becomes an issue. Think about it like this. If you're comparing two products that are exactly the same price, of course price matters. So how do you create value when the product you're selling is pretty much the same as everyone else, especially if you're feeling like your photography skills aren't really award-winning yet? I can feel you. That was me. You do it by creating an experience that feels completely different from what everyone else is doing. As a print-based boutique portrait photographer, we make the process of creating custom artwork for their homes fun, easy, and an experience they want to celebrate. Here's how we do this. We guide them before this session with a detailed consultation where we talk about custom artwork. Our job here is to help them see what the artwork is going to look like in different spots in their home. This takes away their fear and lets you hone in on exactly what images to create. Then, because we've spent so much time with them before, the session flows so much more smoothly and it's so much fun. I remember with my old system going to the park and asking strangers if they were my client. Now, after the session, we sit with them. We look at the images together and I help them select images that look best in their home. We can even show them digitally what our images will look like to scale in their home. This takes away all of the risk of them making a mistake by showing them what it looks like. And then they say, oh my gosh, I love it. Yes, let's go. So this isn't just a process. It's an experience of being cared for. This is what separates the boutique model from the high-res digital volume model. This is a commodity model. This is not. Think of it like a well-run restaurant. You come in and they treat you so amazing. You aren't in a big hurry. They offer you wine and an appetizer and salad and then the meal and then dessert. And all of those things easily add up to 10 times what McDonald's charges for their little Happy Meal box, right? That's the difference between the restaurant full service experience and the Happy Meal approach. You're probably realizing by now that this isn't about being cheaper. It's about changing the game and doing things completely differently. But here's the thing. Even with all this value, if you don't handle the pricing conversation correctly, and it's easier than you're making it, it's going to be hard to book right fit clients. By the way, if you like what I'm sharing here, because this is good stuff, isn't it? You'll love my free weekly newsletter. It's a quick 5-minute read with actionable ideas to grow your portrait photography business. I would print it out and put it in a binder and keep these lessons. Click the link in the description. You can sign up and get going with that. Step 3, the first conversation strategy. So when exactly should you have the pricing conversation? And this answer might surprise you. Not only does it need to happen before they even book you, it needs to happen in the very first conversation. Once you've covered it and you book them, price isn't an issue again. What many photographers do wrong is they tell people on the first phone call that they get all the digital files for one low price. Then they're surprised when clients don't order printed artwork later, if they start offering it at all. For you to create a business that leverages your time in a way that you can make an unlimited amount of money for the same amount of work as a photographer who gives it all away for one low price, prospects need to understand this important detail on the first phone call. Because when they they work with you, they will pay a session fee up front. That is only for your time to create these images for them to choose from. And then you will sit with them to help them place their custom order. This creates something we call an assumption of sale. You've got to be crystal clear with people when you talk to them that I'm going to help you create this artwork. So it's got to be a benefit to them. And they must be expecting to order, not thinking they're going to get it all. Think about it this way, friend. When you go to a restaurant, you place your order and then they charge you for what you select. Pretty much everywhere you go, you pick out what you want and you pay for it. I don't know why, after the invention of the digital camera, that photographers feel the need to give everything away for one low price. People don't need more digital files. They can create those themselves. What they do need, even though they may not know it when they're talking to you at the first, is help creating heirloom artwork of the people they love to decorate their homes. That, my friend, is what is worth more. It isn't about your photography skills or some fancy closing technique, and it really doesn't have that much to do with your prices. It's how you have this conversation. I have 7 different things that I make sure I go through on that first conversation, but let me share with you the one sentence I always use that changes the game in this conversation. Let me tell you what makes me different, because my business is very different from most photographers. This is what helps them erase their preconceived ideas of what they think you do, and you're letting them know that you're different. So then you can lead into what makes you different, why wall artwork is so much more important to you than digital files. Then after you've created that value, you can talk about prices. At this point in the conversation, you're going to know if they're a fit. If they are, you set up the in-person consultation, and that's where you give them the printed version of your price list and you review it again. Listen, when you follow these steps, price conversations stop being scary for you and your client. Think about it. You shouldn't feel yucky about this. And as a consumer, we don't want prices withheld. You have nothing to hide. Explain it like it's the best part of the process, because you're worth every penny and you don't need a discount and you don't need to negotiate. Stand firm and talk about your prices, just like you're talking about their clothing for their session or the weather in the next week. Listen, I had to learn this the hard way, and I'm hoping to save you from some hard lessons. When you follow a solid system that serves the client, there's no yucky sales pressure needed. They're begging for the products by the end because they're so invested in the outcome. Friend, don't be afraid to have this conversation, because this conversation alone eliminates 90% of pricing objections. So what happens in this conversation if after you've gone through all this and you've created the value and you've presented your prices and then they're not sure if it's right for them? That brings me to step 4, pricing psychology, because that's where the psychology comes in. Because at this point, they've heard the value, they've seen the process, and they understand how you're different. But now they're on the fence and they're asking themselves, is this really worth it? Sometimes in this call, the answer is clear. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm ready. Or they're a clear no. And they say something like, wait, you don't give me 200 digital files for $200? No, I don't. But there are a lot of people who will. And, I wish you a lot of luck. Be kind, let them go, right? Because they're not my clients. I hope that you don't want them to be your clients anymore. But often there's a third group, the ones who are interested but hesitant, and this is where pricing psychology helps. I teach a lot of these strategies to my students to make it super easy for them to do, but let me share one of my favorites. It's called price anchoring. It's where you connect their emotional decision to a logical spending that they're already comfortable with. For example, I had a prospect one time who called me and she was like, I really want this, but I need to talk to my husband, which sometimes can be just a smokescreen. It's their way of saying that's too much. But I said, what do you think your husband's going to say? And she said, I love this, I want this, but he just doesn't value photography. And I was asking her a few questions and she realized that her husband had just spent $8,000 on a summer golfing package. She was telling me how she will have this artwork forever. And if he is doing that $8,000 and it's gone in a summer, oh my gosh, she should do this. So boom, she booked on the spot. That's the power of anchoring. It reframes price in a way that makes sense, both emotionally and logically. But here's the thing, even with these 4 amazing strategies, there's still one thing that can sabotage everything. And that's your own self-doubt. Which brings me to the final step, and that's number 5, building belief in your worth. Here's the truth. You can have amazing images and the perfect pricing system, but none of it matters if you don't believe your work is worth it. Self-doubt is the one thing that can sabotage everything. So if you don't yet believe your portraits are worth $2,000 or more, your number one job is to build that belief. And the way you do that is simple. Surround yourself with people who are already doing what you want to do and succeeding. Hire a mentor. Invest in a proven system. Put yourself in a community where others are following the same system in achieving the results you want. And then practice that pricing conversation over and over until you don't get nervous at all. The bottom line is confidence is contagious. When you believe in your value, your clients will too. So 5 steps to profitable portrait pricing are: step 1, building your foundation and knowing your true cost structure. Number 2, understanding how the boutique model, which creates value and takes price competition off the table, is a much better option than getting in that competitive price race to the bottom. Step 3 is talking about pricing before clients ever book and doing it in a way that creates an assumption of sale. Step 3 is using pricing psychology like price anchoring so your clients can justify investing in you emotionally and logically. And step number 5 is building an unshakable belief in your own worth. My friend, you can do this. Now, keep going. Click the link to watch the portrait pricing secrets that nobody tells you.